Hello, grade 5. Welcome back. It's day 2 of social studies and your e-learning experience. I hope you remember a little bit about what we talked about yesterday in yesterday's video. But that was fur trade forts, a little bit about the beaver hats, a little bit about how the posts worked. We learned about how the posts then grew a little bit and they became forts. So we're going to start by continuing our discussion about forts. So, just like yesterday, feel free to pause the video whenever you need to get the highlights down. Like I said, I'll only be on that for about, whenever I scroll, the highlights will disappear. So, a few seconds, right? So pause, get the highlights, then continue the video. All right, here we go. So, to decide the best locations for trading posts and to seek out new trading areas, some Hudson Bay explorers, again primarily Scottish, were sent to explore the vast new areas of Canada's west. So right off the bat, let's give that a highlight. To decide the best locations for trading posts and to seek out new trading areas, some Hudson Bay explorers, again primarily Scottish, were sent to explore the vast new areas of Canada's west. They established trading posts, but more importantly, they drew maps of the new land and kept records about the landmarks and landscape. So this was important as well. More importantly, they drew maps of the new land and kept records of the landmarks and landscape. So they didn't know what they would find. So they had to go out, explore the land, create maps, take notes of what they saw, what mountains, what rivers, what lakes, everything like that, so that they could know what they were going into when they traveled that way again. They traveled well beyond the prairies and ventured into the unexplored mountains, northern forested regions, as well as the Arctic. In addition to the fur trade, many of these expeditions were carried out because they wanted to find a passageway to the Pacific Ocean. So you can highlight that. Many of these expeditions were carried out because they wanted to find passageway to the Pacific Ocean. Along the way, the names of these explorers were recorded on the names of rivers, mountains, lakes, towns, and regions. For example, Fraser River, Mackenzie River, and the Thompson River, they are names that we continue to use today. So, the names of these explorers were recorded on the names of rivers, mountains, lakes, and regions. And if you travel to Canada, you'll maybe go to some of these places through British Columbia and Western Canada. After the trading forts were set up, the natives began more frequently to bring their furs directly to the fort. So remember, the forts were a lot bigger. They had many things going on inside them. So the First Nations people wanted to bring their furs directly to the fort. The natives began more frequently to bring their furs directly to the fort. Okay? They thought they would get a better deal at the fort, and there was a better selection of goods to choose from. So we're going to highlight that one. As well, they enjoyed the social aspect of meeting with relatives and other natives. The fort soon became more than just a fur trading center, and they developed into small communities. So as you can see here, we have some First Nations people kind of setting up outside the fort, and they're able to come in and out, and it was more of a community, less of a trading spot. So they enjoyed the social aspect of meeting with relatives and other natives. The forts soon became small settlements. Okay? So that's what we're going to underline there. So give it a pause, get the highlights, and then we will move on. All right. So Some of the Scottish and French traders realized they could become much richer if they had their own fur trading company, instead of working for wages from the HBC, the Hudson's Bay Company. Eventually, they started their own company and called it the Northwest Company. Everyone involved with the company was offered part ownership and a share of the earnings. Okay, I'll pause there for a second. So, the Scottish and French traders realized they could become much richer if they had their own fur trading company. Okay, if they had their own company. They started their own company and called it the Northwest Company, or NWC as you might see it. Everyone involved with the company was offered part ownership and a share of the earnings. So, they're going to earn more money by being a part of this company because they're going to be part owner. So they will get a share of everything that is given, that is sold. Okay, the resulting business was very profitable, so they made lots of money. But they were not as good at running a business as the HBC, as the Hudson's Bay Company, because the Hudson's Bay Company was set up by the King of England. So he obviously has experience in running a nation and running things, so the HBC was run very well. The Northwest Company was not. It was only a matter of time before the HBC, Hudson's Bay Company, and the NWC, Northwest Company, started to disagree. The rivalry between the two companies eventually resulted in the 1821 merger of the two companies. With the merger came lower wages, closed forts, and the posts were encouraged to raise animals and grow vegetables. Okay, so raise animals, grow vegetables, lower wages, close forts. Okay, so this is all due to the merger. So what is a merger, you might ask? It's when two things come together to become one. So we're going to highlight in there the HBC and NWC started to disagree. And then we're going to highlight eventually resulted in the 1821 merger of the two companies. Okay. With the merger came lower wages, closed forts, and an end to using liquor, and the posts were encouraged to raise animals and grow vegetables. So rather than a lot of trading going on, they started to almost create farms. All right, so I'll let you get that highlighted. So pause if you need to. As I'm going to scroll, this will disappear. Okay? All right. So, now we're going to kind of switch subjects here, or it relates, but it's not about forts anymore. We're going to learn about a group of people that formed because of this fur trade. So, first, life in the fur trade. Life in the fur trade could be extremely isolated and lonely. To relieve this loneliness, many traders would marry native women, so people who were already in Canada, the First Nations people. And gradually, a new nation grew, the offspring of the white traders and the Aboriginal women. So their kids, their children. Known as Metis, they were mainly French-speaking and Catholic. So we're going to underline that. The offspring, the kids of the white traders and the Aboriginal women, known as Metis, they were French-speaking and Catholic. Okay. Now this next one, we're going to highlight it all. But I want you to listen carefully. This is really important. The Metis were a resourceful, adaptable people who skillfully combined their father's knowledge of European technology with their mother's knowledge of Aboriginal techniques. The resulting lifestyle was more efficient and effective and better able to survive the harsh Canadian climate and lands. So right here, this little paragraph. You're just going to highlight that whole thing. All right? So pause here if you need to, highlight that, and then continue. Many Metis came from eastern Canada working for the fur trade as voyageurs, coureurs de bois, trappers, guides, factors, interpreters, canoe and York boat paddlers, and Red River cart drivers. So many Metis did these things as part of the fur trade. The Metis shared their skills of hunting for buffalo, making pemmican, gathering wild berries and wild vegetables with the fur traders. And the Metis taught the settlers how to adapt to their new surroundings. So that is important. The Metis taught the settlers, the European settlers, how to adapt to their surroundings because everything was very different in Canada. All right, so using materials, European materials, combined with native products, the Metis were able to create even more products from the land. I wonder where mucklucks, bannock, or Saskatoon pie came from. Have any of you ever heard of mucklucks, bannock, or Saskatoon pie? If you haven't, maybe you should have a little Google search. See what these things are. But anyways, another important aspect here is using European materials combined with native products. The Metis were able to create even more products from the land. Okay. Later on, Metis men labored for the farmers, clearing land and planting crops, while the Metis women taught the European settlers how to preserve wild game and foods that would be essential to survive the long, cold, desolate winters. French, Ojibwe, and English were the three languages of the fur trade in Lower Canada. To be a successful fur trader, it was important to know some words in each language. So those two lines are quite important. I'll scroll up and get the highlights for you in a second. When the fur trade expanded westward, the other languages of the First Nations were important as well. The fur trade was responsible for the creation of a fourth language, Michif, which is the language of the Metis. So I'm going to scroll up, and on your paper you'll see this image. So I'm going to scroll there. All right, and I'll give you the highlights of that last paragraph here. So we're going to highlight the first and second lines, which are the first two sentences. So the three languages, French, Ojibwe, English, those were the important languages of the fur trade. And the last one, the fur trade was responsible for creation of a fourth language, Michif, which is the language of the Metis. So here's a little image of kind of where they came from. We have our Aboriginal women over here. We have our fur traders from Europe over here, our men. They married, they had kids, which formed the Métis people, which is a French Cree word. And their language comes from Cree verbs and French nouns. So it's a combination of two languages, which is what they spoke. For their fathers were European and their mothers were from the First Nations tribes. They were very important to the fur trade. They played a very important role in the fur trade, as it said earlier. They were coureurs de bois, they were voyageurs, they were paddlers on boats. They did so much for the fur trade, and they taught all the Europeans how to survive the harsh climates that they were coming into and how to live off the land. So we're going to leave it there for today. What I want you to do is the same thing as yesterday. Go and tell a friend, tell a family member, mother, father, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, whoever, a little bit about the fur trade forts and the Métis people. Okay, that's your work for today. Tomorrow I will be giving an assignment on Edmodo, So stay tuned for that. You'll see details. And your third video will come tomorrow as well. All right, have a great day.